In July of 1916, it rained for 6 straight days in western North Carolina. The ground was completely saturated. Then the hurricane came. The Swannanoa River broke its boundaries. Dams collapsed. The French Broad River rose to 21 feet and spread to 1,300 feet wide. The event was known as the Flood to end all floods, and it was until September of 2024.
You have the winds. It's like a bomb went off. There's not a road in the county that wasn't closed. Then followed shortly by the flooding, because we were already at flood stage, but the flood from the hurricane came about 7 or 8 hours later.
Everybody was talking about this storm and talking about how they believed that it would be more impactful to us than the storm of 1916, I think it was. Of course, no one remembers that storm. No one knows what it was like, but they had, the flood levels of that. So we were anticipating that a storm would get to that point. Now, for my frame of reference, I've been here just now 4 years in Hendersonville, and so I'd seen some localized flooding here, but no grasp of what the flooding of 1916 would look like, or what a storm that surpassed that would look like here, right? I had no concept, to really base my my envision of what I thought was going to happen.
The day of the rains, I think that what we saw more than anything were people reaching out, just unnerved, not knowing what was going to happen next. And obviously the community was in a state of emergency. People were nervous for their lives, and ultimately people lost their lives with the rapid flooding that took place in places like Swannanoa and mobile home parks. People, days after, family members reaching out, trying to find their loved ones, were distraught, and homes were completely flooded, and businesses, and obviously even on Hendersonville Road, where I was about 24 hours later, was completely flooded. The Ingalls parking lot was overcome with water. There were cars on Hendersonville Road flooded, sitting there. People were in the Whole Foods parking lot across from Ingalls, just looking out on what became a river. The community was just stunned.
I think that's what hit me the most, is these personal kind of stories where you see this damage firsthand. Another guy talked to in Swannanoa, he and his wife were in there, see the water coming up in the backyard about waist level. He goes in, he says, we need to put our stuff on the bunk beds so it won't get wet, our documents and stuff. The water just keeps rising and rising, rises over the bunk beds. They go up in the attic, and then they realized they could drown in the attic, so they made a dash swim for it over the washer and dryer out the window. He's standing on the porch. His wife gets up on the roof. He's handing the 2-year-old up to his wife. They have a 4-year-old who's already up there, and they were able to be rescued, the children and the wife, by kayakers about 2 hours later. He got rescued about 5 hours later.
There's no glory where I've fallen, and I'm so far from my home. Darling, I swear it's true. I will come back to you in springtime, when the lilies are in bloom.
An 11-year-old was on the couch. He was watching television. The landslide came down the mountain, took the bottom of the house, 2-story, flipped the top story upside down, turned the bottom story upside down, and the boy was trapped under the couch. And I was listening to the call because I'm a chaplain with the fire department. And they were frantically trying to get there, but they were having to saw the trees out of the road. The fire departments couldn't get there. The rescue squads couldn't get there. When they finally got there, they found the grandmother, the grandfather, and the granddaughter, but they couldn't find the boy. And there was a dog, and the dog kept showing interest to this pile of debris. And so they had noticed the dog, and I was told that the rescue dog found the boy. Well, when I later talked to the family, it wasn't a rescue dog, as in a professionally trained dog. It was a rescued dog. They gave $50 for it at the pound 3 years earlier. And that dog went to that pile and kept scratching at that pile till the rescuers started finally saying, let's try it. And they found a warm hand. And so I have no doubt the Lord had the dog for just such a time as that. And that little boy was fine.
We've all seen the physical devastation left behind by Hurricane Helene. Damaged roads, destroyed bridges, and homes lost. Yet there are hidden issues that often go unnoticed. Did you know that domestic violence cases often rise during disasters?
People were coming in who had lost everything and had nothing and needed us to help link them back into having shelter, housing, food, and clothing, which we keep on site, and we're able to help families both in our service area but also in the community. Anybody who needed clothes that wanted to come get that, we linked and were able to use our resale store. We serve survivors daily, and any given day our shelter averages around 25 a day. Through Helene, we had 31 adults and children and residents with us. Post-Helene, our numbers have increased, and we expect when the county's emergency funds from FEMA from hotels are closing out that we will see another large surge.
I think the most important thing before, during, and after a traumatic event is to really be educated. I think that we all feel less crazy and feel more empowered when we understand. So our bodies react both consciously and unconsciously to all of the stimulus that's happening around us. One of the things that's important to really understand is we're hardwired for survival. So a lot of times we don't even have any control over the things that we do.
On the night of September 26th, I became concerned about what we were going to experience because earlier that morning I was out walking around exploring the neighborhood and I noticed a lot of puddles on the ground. So this small storm super saturated our soil, made puddles start to form on the surface, and by the time Helene arrived and dropped her anywhere between 14 to 30 inches of rain, the soil could not absorb any more of that water. So all of that water ran off the surface and entered our streams, which led to catastrophic flooding and the events that we've all heard and seen about this disaster. So we're standing beside the Davidson River in Pisgah Forest in Brevard, North Carolina. So this stream behind us is flowing at what we call base flow. This is the typical flow that streams flow during any kind of non-storm related event. So when Hurricane Helene came through and dropped anywhere between 14 to 30 inches of precipitation on this area, that caused this stream to flood really rapidly. So what we would call a flash flood. So that flash flood raised the elevation of this water and impacted all of the floodplain surfaces in the vicinity of this stream. But that happened at countless streams throughout Western North Carolina because this event impacted the entire region. And that transformed the shape and the function of the landscape in Western North Carolina for the next foreseeable future. So when we consider these 100-year floods that have about a 1% chance of happening in any given calendar year, what we're seeing is that with climate change, that 100-year flood is happening at about a 60-year increment, right? So it's going from a 1% chance of happening in any calendar year to about a 2% chance happening, right? And every single year we calculate these flood frequencies based on floods that have happened in the past, right? And so every year, the probability of one of those floods of the magnitude happening is reset. So every single year, we could say that we have a 1% chance of a 100-year flood happening.
We are so much ahead of a lot of the communities surrounding us that we've been very fortunate. We are definitely still in recovery mode. Some of our facilities are not fully functional, especially our operations center, but we have been able to adapt to the problems that we've had. For the most part, our businesses are recovering well. Again, not totally, but we are glad to have the support of our visitors and our residents to help us move forward as we continue from recovery into rebuilding.
This wasn't just a response to the Jewish community. This was a response to the entire population, to our neighbors, to everybody around us. And one of the amazing, beautiful, heartwarming things about what we experienced as a result of the storm was this influx of connection and connectivity. Nobody was divided. I mean, everybody just felt so one, so connected. If there was, again, we had pallets of water out in the front of Chabad. Anybody who drove through, anybody who saw, all of our neighbors from all backgrounds, all types, everybody just came, and there was so much camaraderie, so much empathy, so much connection. It was just a beautiful thing. So any effort that we made was open and available and exercised for all the residents of Asheville.
The lifeblood of what Nechama does is really volunteer-driven. Our model is to have highly trained team leads who are always on our sites. We have scoped the project, we know what we can do, but the actual hands, the actual people who do the work are volunteers. Without volunteers, we would just be 4 guys with 4 trucks doing tiny bits of work every day.
One major issue for us for medical supplies for my daughter was that when the flood happened in her area, we lost a significant amount of medical supplies for her. One being a way for us to monitor her blood sugar. She's the type 1, so her blood sugar is it fluctuates a lot. So it honestly took 5 months for us to get replacement for that. We just got those replacements. As soon as the power came back on, there was a night in October. Her brother woke up about 5 o'clock in the morning, ran to our bedroom and was screaming, "Mom, Mom, Haley is shaking all over and her eyes are open." And so at that point, we all ran into a different role to go in to find my daughter in a hypoglycemic diabetic seizure. That was a result of not being able to monitor her blood sugar because we lost the medical supplies. So we don't know how low her blood sugar got, but we do know that in the past she's been able to talk with a blood sugar in the 30s. So this was unbelievably close to a coma for her. She was in full seizure activity when I went into the room. She had bit her tongue and was completely unresponsive. With the help of my husband calling 911 and running to get medical supplies down in the flooded basement, we were able to get her some emergency glucagon that within a couple of minutes got the sugar back to her brain and brought her back to us. We called an ambulance. They couldn't get to our home. They had to park and walk in, and they were actually not even from the area. They were as reinforcements to help our fire department. So my daughter almost died, and if it hadn't have been for her brother being in the same bedroom with her, then she would have.
One of the challenges we had early on in the storm was communicating in multiple languages. We recognized that we could have done better, so we brought in some folks from those communities, most specifically folks Spanish speaking. So we brought in some of our partners from the nonprofit world to help us craft the language, the messages in the right way. But we used every type of vehicle imaginable to perform rescues. Behind me here is the rescue squad's LMTV, a surplus military truck that was used to forward high water and rescue folks, get them out of harm's way. Every fire department had every high clearance vehicle they have available being used. Every boat that was available being used. We're very blessed here in the county. We've got tremendous first responders. Everybody was taxed. We had additional resources coming in from outside of the community to help. and they were bringing high clearance vehicles and boats as well to be able to effect rescues.
We couldn't get anyone to the hospital. So we had Four Seasons shut down, we had south end of town was shut down. We had a task force team coming up out of Charlotte that assist us, and we were having to ferry patients that were coming from the county across the water to get to Part E.
Able to get on the counter, and then I opened the cabinet doors so I could use my feet to climb up, and I was just laughing, going, well, forget the dishes. So I just took the dishes and threw them in the water so I could climb into the cabinets and get to the high spot. I mean, I was up there for hours, just hours. And then eventually I started hearing people, men, and I started yelling, screaming, help, help, help.
The dogs and the cats were alive. My barn was still standing. So I knew that the goats and the pigs and the chickens were safe, and I knew the worst of it was over. And I knew that I was supposed to live. And so I walked outside and just started walking down the street, and I don't know why. I just did. I just started walking in the middle of all of it. And I felt like my entire life would be different from that moment, and it has been.
Darling, I've been such a fool. Think that I'd be coming back to you to make you wait for me beneath the waning moon. Come now, stand by my side. Like cool black stones where I lie. It's springtime, and the lilies are in bloom.
It was raining really, really hard. Our basement had started flooding that day, and people were talking about evacuating, but we could not evacuate because of our animals. We have a dog, 4 cats, 2 gerbils, and there's just no way we would leave and leave them alone.
I thank God
I do too.
every day that the damage was minimal to us.
I woke up at about 5 o'clock that next morning. The storm itself woke me up and didn't quite know what was going on. I could just hear things going on outside. And even kind of that interest and curiosity kind of got me up quick. I went and walked out on the porch, and the way the storm was coming and the way our house sits, there was one porch on the western side of the house that you could actually stand on and watch the storm. And so when I stepped out, though, I realized pretty much right away how bad it was getting. I knew how bad our road was. Our road was impassable. We had a number of trees down, and luckily no houses had been damaged and no cars. So it was just a matter of tree damage, but the storm was still kind of hitting, and there was no way you could get out and work in that. And so, for the next handful of hours, really just kind of paced back and forth in the house and would go out every once in a while and watch the storm, and then come back in and pace and check on my oldest, even though I knew he was fine. I think I asked him if he was okay probably 100 times that morning.
Luckily, I've got 2 friends that live right across the main road, so we were able to walk there. And then, my best friend lives right on the river, and so I knew those were kind of like my places to have shared community for my kid. They know my son can help, he has special needs, so to have people that understand him during a really traumatic time or a difficult time was important. To think that I was going to do it here alone was kind of crazy.
I mean, the first thing I said when we drove up, I said, just run in the bathroom and get all my medicines. I wasn't even going to go in, and he came back out and said, everything dissolved. I was like, what are you talking about? It's like up on a shelf. I was going, look at the line. The water's been like 6 feet up in the house. Everything's gone.
I take my 2 little dogs, and I take them and I put them in what I call an old Expedition that I had, and I put us like a little backpack and maybe a couple cans of their food and some water, and I move them up there. And at this time it's raining so hard that I can't see. I'm struggling to see how to even get up. And I go on up to the bank and I go up to my dogs and we sit in the vehicle. My building is pretty much gone, and everything that I can see that was in the yard is pretty well gone. When I'm looking into the windows of the house, the refrigerator is beating off the ceiling. I can see the washer and the dryer. It's just like you took a bottle of mud and water and you just shuck it up and you put little pieces in it. Every once in a while you can see something. And there's an island that's up above me. It had sycamore trees on it that was humongous. Just everything's getting destroyed, and I'm seeing buildings going down and pieces of houses, and it's going so fast I can't hardly make out a lot of stuff. But all of a sudden, this island, it just picks up. I'm talking grass, dirt, trees, the whole thing picks up. And it hits my building. When it hits it, it just flattens it. And the deck that I had there was like 50 by 10. It hits that deck and that deck just gets demolished.
Here we are 6 months later. We're still taking supplies to different places. There's more building material, things of that nature now, but still trying to help people as it's needed. It's really easy to remember the devastation when you're going through it. And then when you get past it, maybe your community, your town is back to normal-ish. Well, there's a bunch of others that are not. Bat Cave is still bad. Chimney Rock's getting a little bit better, but it's still bad. And honestly, everything gets better every day, but we're 6 months out. It's bad. Swannanoa, they've done a lot of cleaning up, but it's still bad. Other places up in Burnsville and Pensacola, Spruce Pine, Marshall, Hot Springs, all these places, yes, there's been a lot of work done, but still bad. So basically what I'm saying is don't forget them. Don't forget these communities, don't forget these people. And if you're able to still help, then help. If you're able to give, then give. Material now they're having to purchase to rebuild people's homes and rebuild people's livelihoods. It's not cheap. And so if you can help that way by giving towards those needs, that'll be helpful. And if you're skilled that way, that might be an opportunity to serve and to serve some of these communities. I know some churches that are rebuilding people's homes, and they're taking upon themselves to build these homes back, and which are going to be a great blessing to those families. But we're talking thousands of homes, not just a couple. So all that takes time, it takes money. And if you're able to donate, either or, that'd be a big help to these people in this community.
The flood will swallow all you leave behind. Won't be back to start all over. But what I felt before is gone. Mary, take the baby, river's rising. The muddy water's taking back our home. The road is gone, there's just one way to leave here. Turn my back on what I've left below. Shifting lands and broken farms around me. Muddy water's changing all I know. It's hard to say just what I'm losing. Ain't never felt so all alone. Mary, take the baby, river's rising. Muddy water's taking back my home. Muddy water's taking back my home.